Hello everybody, how you doing today? This is Sakoni Prince of SakoniPrince.com, where we make motivation personal by introducing you to yourself. And I want to welcome you to the H.E.A.L podcast. H.E.A.L is an acronym for Help, Elevate, and Learn, and it's actually based on my latest book by the same title, and it's a guide to healing your inner child. I'm super excited to be able to share with this podcast with you today because our guest is definitely going to be someone that you want to hear. But as always, we want to thank our sponsor for sponsoring this podcast, none other than BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable, it is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal or choose SakoniPrinceHeal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. We're so excited for having BetterHelp being a sponsor of our podcast. I'm telling you, it is a pleasure to have somebody to come alongside and really help you, to be able to get the word out. And this podcast, as I've oftentimes said, is not meant to end the conversation, but to start the conversation. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have somebody like BetterHelp come alongside and help us to actually get to a place to where we can talk about, and not just talk about, but get the help we need when it comes to healing. Now, our guest today, is, and believe it or not, she is the sister of the guy we had last week. She is the sister of my good friend Wanda Graham, and her name is Bridgette Leverett, and I'm going to have her come up and introduce herself. Bridgette, the mic's yours.
Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing tonight? My name is Bridgette
Good.
Leverett, and like Sakoni said, I am the little baby sister to Mr. Wendell Graham with Slight Edge
Consulting.
Consultant. Yeah, I don't know why I went blank. And it's just an honor tonight to be on. And it was an honor for Sakoni to call me to be on his show tonight. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in as we get started on this healing journey.
Well, when Wendell was on last week, you were one of the actually most vocal people in the chat, actually sending in comments. And we were so appreciative, to that level of interaction. And we also have, in fact, Miss Lisa Wade on, and she sends a heart. Yeah, because I'm assuming that, she's a family friend, because she was on last week as well.
That's one of my good friends. We've been friends for over 35 years. Not that I'm going to age myself or anything, because I'm still like a young girl, you know what I mean? But
Of
yes,
course.
we've been friends a very long time. So she's
Okay.
not just a friend, she's my sister.
Okay, well, cool. And there is my good friend Wendell. He said, that's my sister, y'all. And yes, you are.
Hey,
Yes, you are. Well, listen. I know that I sent you the questions and stuff, and I just want to dive right in because I know how important it is for us to start this conversation. And my first question has been to all of my guests, in your professional opinion, how important is inner child healing?
In my opinion, inner child healing is very, very, very important. In order to heal, you got to recognize that you have a problem. And normally, if something happens with us when we're children, a lot of times it affects us. And as the years go by, we realize that something happened, something triggered us, something we're carrying through life. And if we don't address it, it can carry over into friendships, relationships, marriages, it can carry on your job and everything. So because you never know when a trigger, and it's when it comes to the healing of whatever may have happened in your life, all trauma, as we should say, is different. Sometimes things just happen. How about that? Right. Because I can't really say I look at everything as very traumatic, but some things have happened in my life. And the way I look at it is that it happened for a reason. So I just had to take it and put it on my belt. And I didn't understand then what I know now, but I know that had to have happened to me in order for me to be sitting in this very place right now this evening.
And that is so, so true. And we all have to take that courageous step to really look at ourselves and to
Mm-hmm.
address the things that are impacting and affecting us on a daily basis. And I love what you said because I remember a good friend of mine, Dr. Charles Dent, he would oftentimes say that even when we were children, there were things that happened to us and we didn't know how to articulate it. Like
Mm-hmm.
we didn't know to call it trauma or that it was going to impact us years down the line because we
That's
just
right.
didn't know because we were a child.
That's right.
But as we became an adult and as we started to learn and our vocabulary grew and developed, we have
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity now to give a name and even sometimes a face to the things that happened to us as a child.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
that is so, so true. You know, all of us, we need to take a personal assessment of
Yes.
ourselves. I mean, everything is lighting up. In fact, we got Wonder chiming in. It says, in
Oh,
fact, when you don't address your trauma, it does. It carries over. It shows up in the worst possible place at the worst
yeah.
possible time. And you know, even in my book, I talk about the slap heard around the world,
Right.
and that was in reference to Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars, and
Yeah.
how his unresolved trauma it showed up. Now, of course, that was on the national stage, a global
Right.
stage. Everybody has a chance to see it and pass judgment on it. But a lot of us, we have stuff like that happen on our job, in our relationships, with our
Mhm.
family, at the cookout, at the barbecue,
That's right.
in the fellowship hall, at the church.
You
So,
never know.
although it may not be on full display, it still
Right.
happens.
Right.
But we have to have the courage to be able to address it and to focus on it.
It's odd because things that happen. Like I remember one time when I was a little girl, and I was like 5 years old, right? And people didn't know why I didn't like eggs for a long time, and I didn't talk about it. But what
Mm,
happened was when I was five, we stayed in Hackensack, New Jersey, and I don't know if anybody on here. I know a couple of people would know what a lifesaver lollipop is, and I was
right,
actually
right.
sucking on one, and I fell down the stairs and it lodged in my throat. So when it
Mm,
lodged in my throat, I was choking to death. Okay.
wow.
So my mother, the late Mary Graham, and her twin sister Martha, they were at home. So when I began to choke, I remember them calling on Jesus because anybody know I love the Lord because I know He loved me. So I remember them calling on Jesus, and as they were calling on Jesus, they were trying to figure out how to get this out of my throat. But they didn't know, but I knew, and I was just a little girl, that it was lodged around my tonsils. So it was going to be very hard for them to get it out. And I do remember blacking out. I remember that. And then the one thing I guess the Lord told my mother to get some raw eggs and throw it down my throat. So I remember them cracking the eggs. I can remember coming in and out. And I remember them cracking the eggs. And I remember them throwing down my throat. But then they had me over this green trash bag. And they was trying to get it out. And they was praying and everything. And finally it loosed. And I began breathing. I mean, like I was supposed to breathe because I was choking to death. But I thank God for the Lord for intervening and telling my mom and her sister what to do because if not, that could have been a very the end of me. But God saw fit not for that to be the end of me because it was so much more that I had to do. So over the years, if someone said, "Do you want an egg, Bridget?" Don't give me no eggs. But I never would, and I didn't know really why. But then it dawned on me it's because when I was choking, they threw eggs down my throat in order to
Mm,
save my life. So eggs, really, girl, is your best friend. So what are you doing, girl? You better eat your eggs. So over the last year, I began to work out. So I needed protein, and then I
right.
really began to be able to boil an egg. But what happened was a healing took place. And I kept saying, I need the egg, but I had to heal from the trauma that happened with the egg. So,
Right.
and then I started telling people what had happened to me. And it was like, oh, I can understand why you may not want no eggs, girl, because at a young age, you was having slime throw down your throat. And that's
Right.
the only
Right.
way. But
Right.
what I can say is even such a thing as it's not a small thing because I was choking, but that
Right.
right there was triggering things in my life that I wouldn't even attach myself to, although it wasn't bad for
Right.
me.
Right.
And
Well,
in life,
and
we often have things that will happen to us. I'm always say that, but always know it's just a test. It'll start when you're from a little bitty old girl or a boy, for you to grow up, because in life, it's going to be something that you're going to be taught, because it's strengthening you and it's building you. And you got to get over things in your life. And that's just one thing. You got people who have to get over molestation, rape, being bullied. I've been bullied before. I was a kid that liked everybody. I was just a people's person. But people saw fit to try to bully me, put me down because I didn't have what other people had and stuff like that. But I didn't really let that affect me, because I knew my mom was doing the best she could do, and God was a keeper, you know what I mean? So he'll let you remember some things, and you also will be able to put some things behind you. And that's what I learned to do in my life, was to overcome obstacles that may have been in my very way, so it wouldn't hinder me or hold me down.
Right, right. And that's so, so true. I tell people all the time, it only becomes a loss if you leave the lesson.
That's
Either
right.
you win or you learn.
Mm-hmm.
It only becomes a loss if you leave the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of them here with jokes, this is what he posted. He said, we had a refrigerator full of eggs from that day forth. So he was saying, obviously, you stop eating them. Of course, he said, messing with, hey, I'm not going to let you bully my guest on my show. Now, you went last week.
Yes, don't do that. No.
We're not going to let you do that. But listen, and even that story, for those people who didn't know you or who didn't know that about you, they were kind of questioning, well, why don't you like eggs? I mean, in fact, what is it about eggs? And especially even if you didn't talk about it.
That's right.
But healing allows you to be able to not just confront your problem, but then you become a champion for other people that may be going through the same thing.
Yes. Well, I found that out, even with the loss of loved ones. I found that out because as many of us have lost loved ones. When I lost my mother, coming up on the 23rd of this month, it would be 4 years. But before I lost my mom, I had gotten sick, and I was sick with the first round of COVID. And when I got sick with the first round of COVID, when that COVID first came out, it was bad. And I was locked in a room, and my baby girl, my middle daughter, she had them plastered up the door and everything and had me locked in. My husband was there, and my other kids, my oldest daughter had took them to an Airbnb because I was really sick. I never said how sick I was, but what I knew was in that room, I knew Jesus, but I had really met him in that room, because things began to happen to me in that room that I hadn't heard other people talk about. And all I knew is I could read the Bible. I had the Bible. So I said, well, if nothing else, I got the Bible. But I knew I was very, my breath was real short. I was short-winded, but I didn't tell anything. Every time they say, you doing good, Mom? I'm doing fine. Oh, Mama doing good up in here. Because the goal was not to worry them. I didn't want my family worrying about me, because I am a warrior. How about that? And I know who I am, and I know that I'm a warrior. So I knew God wouldn't have put this on me unless he knew I could overcome and fight that battle. But in that room, it was just he and I and my dog, Lucy. Nobody know I love that dog so much, because she carried me through in those days for 21 days. But in the room, I want to get to this part. God always tell me, you got to hide a word in your heart, because you may not be able to read your word. Well, I picked up the Bible, and not knowing, I was actually, my eyes were milked over. It was like somebody poured a lot of milk on them, and don't know, I was injured in my eye with a 2x4. I'm not going to call his name, Wendy Graham. He didn't mean it, Lord Jesus, but I got hit. So therefore, I have, my left eye is good. My right eye is really bad. But in there, I'm like, Lord, I ain't got none of this left eye. So what we doing? I need to see. You get what I'm saying? But we was having a come to Jesus meeting in that room. But I was milked over. And I that's the only way I can say it. But what he did was he said, I hid a word in your heart, because I wasn't going to be able to read. So I had to repeat the word he had planted in my heart a couple of months before. So when I came out of this, because I had been very sick, my mother got sick. And when she got sick, then I had to jump into like in like 10 days, another warrior mode to take care of her until she passed away. So that right there in that room alone, it was scary, y'all. I can't say it wasn't scary, because I knew how sick I was in there, and I knew what was happening in there. And I didn't have nobody but God to turn to. Even when I asked him to take me to the hospital, They took me to the hospital and they told me they need to keep me. And I told them, I said, no, it's a group of people in that parking lot and they waving at me and they waiting on me. Come on back home, mama. Because I knew at that time, so like people was going in and one coming out. So I said, no, I just need to check some vitals and I'm going on back home. But I did that. And I was testing not just myself, but I was leaning and dependent on the Lord to see me through. Okay. When I came out of it, I was still going through a lot of things. But what happened was I had lost the feeling of my whole face. I lost the feeling in my arms. I lost the feeling in my legs. And I said, well, did I have a stroke in here? But I didn't say nothing. I was just smiling. Hey, y'all, still doing it out the window, waving at them because I needed to be positive for my family. If the push wasn't for me, it was for my family. It was for my 3 girls and my husband. That's who the push was for. Because my family needed me. I had too much on the line. My pastor just taught that this past Sunday. It was too much on my line, and I could not let go at that time, no matter how tired I was. But getting back when I was taking care of mom, that right there, that was trauma when it was all over with. But I didn't know how traumatic it could have been to me because I was just in warrior mode, doing the things I had to do to keep her alive for those 3 months that God blessed me with her at home. Okay. But I didn't soak in it. I had to learn how to deal with it. Grieving is fine because the grieving process, we got to do it. No one can tell you how long you can grieve. You grieve according to who the person is. So I had to do that, but I had to still be focused. Things been happening. Don't get me wrong. Some stuff just happened this week. But I told that devil, get thee behind me. And then I put him up under my feet. And you got to keep on going because there's purpose on my life. And because of the purpose that's on my life, I cannot quit. I cannot give up at this point in my life.
Right. Wyndham Graham says, grief is the price we pay for love. And that is true.
Yes.
That is true. If you care about something, that means you can hurt and you can ache over it. That is so true.
Yes.
In fact, he's also had a couple of more statements here. Let's see if we can pull these up. It says, in fact, when someone like love becomes a memory, that memory becomes a treasure. And that is true. Yes. That is true. He says, gone from our sight, but never from our hearts.
That's right. That's right.
In the end, love is the only thing that matters.
That's it.
And also the love you had, that sticks around no matter what.
That's right. Absolutely.
And, as we look at just even issues that may not have happened in our childhood, but just trauma in general,
right?
We have to be able and willing to address it and deal with it. I recently watched a series on Prime called Cross, and it was about the character Alice Cross. And one of the things that he didn't do throughout that entire series, he did not deal with the death of his wife. And I mean, he was an adult. He wasn't a child. He was an adult. But he was acting out, and he was using that as fuel. But he really needed to address it because it was becoming toxic to his friendships and to the case he was working. He really had a whole lot of things. So we have to be, and I tell people this all the time, the bravest thing you can do is to heal from your hurt.
That's right. You got to be transparent. Yeah. You have to be transparent. When you're hurting, it's okay to say I'm hurting. It's okay to say I'm in a bad spot right now. I'm in a bad place right now. Because you got to have time to heal. You got to allow yourself to heal. A lot of times you will feel guilty for going through that healing process. It's something to be going on kind of strange with you saying, I shouldn't do it. I should be able to do this. But no, that's not true. It is okay to allow yourself to heal from the trauma that may have taken place in your life. Don't allow anybody to tell you, well, that's not worth even talking about. If it's something that you feel that's attached to you that can be hindering you in your life, that is just a root. You know what I mean? It's the roots that be going on these days with trauma in people's lives. I think about what is that bush? Oh my God. Azalea bushes. Azalea bushes are quite tricky. You can cut them down and you can lift them all the way out. And it's something about them azalea bushes, even in the winter, they will still bloom again. And it's almost like they're pretty, but they're aggravating because the roots of them, they grow so deep into the ground and they root around everything. And it's just like trauma. Once it happened, no matter what it is, my trauma, not your trauma. no matter what it is, it will begin to attach itself to you. And before you know it, you're a whole, as they say, hot mess. You understand? So in order to get to the root of this problem, you must get into the ground, and you got to get somebody out there, a tree service, and say, you know what? This is not where I need it to be right now. I got my yard all jacked up because now these roots are attaching to my plumbing, and now I got plumbing issues. So I need you to tear this all up. That's the same mindset we need to have when we're dealing with trauma. Once we recognize it, once we allow ourselves to do it, but not let nobody push us there now. But when we allow ourselves to start feeling what it really is, then it is okay to call in the service to come in and help you. But the service that we have to call on is the Lord. I have not found no one else to help me heal like God has helped me heal over the last several years. And my healing process, it's in different stages because it's been different things. I'll say something else. Go ahead. You want to say something?
No. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say this. And we all got plenty of stories. But for a long time, I did not like to go to church. I loved church. I was old tent revival baby. I loved it until this old sneaky, creepy, nasty pastor, when I was 15 years old, felt the need to put his eye on sweet old me. I was a sweet old baby. You understand? And he tried it. He didn't go down like that because let's just say they called in the Calvary. I'm gonna put it like that. Okay. So in the nick of time, but what he was doing was trying to groom me. You understand? And I was looking up to this man. I was like, okay, man of God. And we were going out to the church and everything. But over the years, man, I was like, anytime I would get close, man, I would run. I do not going west. I was not going to stay. But I had to see what got me running. And it was because of what happened when I was 15 years old. But you know what? That had an effect on me with trusting me in a relationship. Can we just talk about it? Can we just be a little honest here? It had me messed up because see, trust is something and I'm very transparent. I've had to deal with it. I have to really deal with it. But when I think about, well, what happened? You was all good. That thing happened. But now when I recognized it, hey, listen, I had to start dealing with it to say, you know what? That's not going to be the part of my life. I got to get rid of that because I know I like to go to church, but I got to let that part go at the same time. You understand? And I had to do that in order for me to be grounded where I am right now.
Right. Well, you said a whole lot of stuff that I really want to kind of unpack because I remember having an azalea bush. It was right by our driveway at the house we stayed in fact, which then became our rental, and it kept blooming, it kept growing, and I wanted to get rid of it. And like you said, I cut it down to the ground. I mean, leveled it, and it would grow back. So this time, after it grew back, I had to go and borrow my dad's, and I don't know if y'all know what it's called, but the only thing I knew it as was they call it a come-along. And basically, it was something that had like a little winch. So I had to take it and wrap it around the tree. I had to crank it and wrench it and then cut the roots as I wrenched it just to get it out. And as you were talking about calling that tree service in, to come in and actually take it up. Because, yes, of course, they have more equipment and everything. Yeah. But when it's entangled and when it's wrapped around stuff and even our trauma, that's one of the reasons why I definitely want us to make sure that we don't try to do this on our own, but we get some help, we get some assistance. That's and right. You were so right about identifying the trauma itself. Right. So many people don't want to admit that I went through anything. I went through something, or something that's bothering me, something's affecting me. And you know what? Even when you have people in your life that care about you, that notice, that pick up on something, if they are close enough to you to where they can say something or brings your attention, or maybe say, have you noticed, or, why is it that this happens when that happens? Because sometimes we are in denial, honestly. And even Wanda talked about that too.
So bad. It can hurt so bad you'll go into denial.
Right. But in order for us to experience the level of freedom that God intended for us to have, we have to be, again, brave enough to heal from it. And that means that we have to address it and deal with it.
You got to talk about it. But you got to have a safe space to talk about it.
Yes.
You got to have a safe space. You got to have someone that's willing to listen to what you're saying. They may not can do nothing about it, but just let me get it off my chest. But you have to have someone you can trust, and that's a safe space. And if you don't have nobody in your circle, it's okay to seek help. You can get a therapist, someone that you don't know. Sometimes that's the best, because I found out when you go find you a therapist that you don't know, you will reveal a whole lot more than what you're willing to reveal with someone you do know. A lot of times we just want to dump enough off to get us going again. However, a lot of times it's so much more entangled in us that we do need to go and seek help. We need to go seek some professional help. And people need to understand. And like tonight, I'm thinking right now, what one would say, Lord, she on here telling all her business. That's how people think. And those are the main people need to go seek some professional help. The ones who say, telling all her business. Well, I don't feel like it's my business, because a lot of times people know you got a problem. So if they already know you got a problem, why not go ahead and address it? If you truly want to be healed, and if you truly want to be set free, if you truly want to, find a safe space that you can go ahead and relieve yourself, release it off of you, so you can move forward in your life. That's all you got to do. But you got to find a safe space.
And even in the book, I write about that. Now, I have this exercise where I call it write it, read it, and release it. Write it, read it, and release it. Because I know there are more women than men that journal, or they have diaries, and they write stuff down and they get it out. Men have a hard time doing it. Yeah. But what I encourage them to do, especially if it's really traumatic, you can write it down, because a lot of men definitely don't want what they went through or their thoughts or anything like that out in the public. But you can write it down, you can read it out loud, and you have a fire pit, you have a barbecue grill, and you can just burn it. You can just get rid of it. But you have to be willing to get it out, because if you don't, just like our bodies, when we're sick, it throws stuff up. It gets stuff out so we can start healing. So many of us, we're holding our mouth, and we're holding in the thing that's making us sick, and we're wondering why we're not getting any better.
Yeah,
and that's
you'll be sick in so many ways, and that sickness actually will spill out onto others. You understand?
Yes.
It'll spill out, and you'll be, that's their way of dealing with it. If they can get it, to spill on somebody else, but then why make the people next to you sick when all you got to do is seek some help? Get some help for it. Men need to understand that also. It is very hard. I have found it's very hard for men to open up. And I can understand it, because, they mucho macho. You understand? It's not easy to do it, But I would say that it's good to get like a good men's group or something together, and y'all can be able to talk. Throw that stuff out there, because what they don't understand, it affects the household. Yeah. See, when they're sick, they got issues, it will affect their household. Right. So they need to understand it's okay for you to get the healing also. How about we all get some healing? You understand? Right. We all go through the family. From your kids on down, everybody need to get some healing. And I don't know a person that don't need healing, to be honest, from something.
Yeah, one of those comments says a safe space is where you can just be, no mask and no judgment.
That's right. No judgment.
And that is so true.
Yeah. Yeah, just be free. Just know that, hey, Harriet Tubman, she came by my house personally and freed me. You thought she just freed the slaves. She freed me also. You understand? So my Harriet Tubman came to my house. You'll catch that about 3:00 in the morning.
You are definitely Wonder's sister.
Am I?
Definitely. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Twinsies or something, they'd be like, y'all act just alike. Well, we was cut from pretty much the same cloth. I'll say
that's it. That's it. Wonder says a safe space is like a cozy blanket for your soul. Super comfy and warm. That's true. Having those types of people in your life is so important, because it actually puts you in a place to where you can get that help you need, get that relief and that release you need, be able to breathe, and even like you said, just get it off you even for a little while so you can actually go back out and fight.
That's right.
In fact, we have another comment here from Miss Tina Graham. She says, this is where I go. Hey, Tina. This is where I go once every month and tell all my business.
Go ahead. That's right, Michelle. I call her Michelle, but she is Tina Michelle Graham. You're absolutely right, sister. And I'm so happy for you because many don't know that's my sister, but she lost her daughter right 6 weeks in between my mom passing. So my sister, I'm proud of her to knowing that it's okay to go get her some help. It is okay. So I'm so proud of you, sister, for doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So all of us, we need to make sure that we make our own mental health a priority, and we do it in such a way that will be overall an example for those around
Yes,
us
yes,
as well as for our kids, because
yes.
they need to know and understand that, okay, look, mommy and dad ain't perfect. Mommy and daddy still are doing this thing called life.
That's right.
And at times we need to be honest enough to say, hey, I need some help. I need some guidance. I need somebody to lean on. And I know a lot of people say, well, I can't afford therapy. Or, I can't afford to go. Well, I would oftentimes tell people, make friends in other states. They don't even know the, names, or,
Mhm.
they're not even trying to call or find out, you know, who you're talking about. They are
Right.
really just focused on, helping you, giving you that safe space. And oftentimes, as we share stuff, we'll see kind of our role in it, our part in it. If we're looking, if
Hmm.
we're honest and open, we will actually see that, and we can make the necessary adjustments.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Well, listen, I have to play this commercial again. In fact, before we get out of here, but just give me 1 second and we'll be right back.
All right.
And this episode is brought to us by none other than our sponsor, BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SaconiPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable. It is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SaconiPrinceHeal or choose Saconi Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. And again, we want to thank BetterHelp for being our sponsor of this episode. We are so appreciative of them for coming alongside and helping us to start this conversation about inner child wounds, inner child trauma, but more importantly, inner child healing.
Yes.
And before we close out real quick, let me pull up a couple of more of these comments here. Let's see what we have here. We got Miss Tracy Wallace. Transparency is a space that you can truly be. Yeah, and that is so true. We also got Mr. Wonder Graham. He says a lot of dudes think vulnerability is a sign of weakness, and so they keep it all bottled up. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure, especially in our African American community, I wanted to be a voice of reason for, when it came to talking about and getting the help that we need. When it also goes on to say, great show. Awesome. So proud of you, Bridget.
Thank you.
And of course, you're saying thank you to everybody.
Oh, yes, I am.
Let's see who else we got. In fact, Miss Stephanie Graham, she says, great job, Bridget. We also have great job from Miss Lisa Wade, as well as love you, Bridget, from Adrian Griffin. So listen, we are so excited to actually be able to have these types of conversations.
Yes.
And Bridget, if anybody wanted to reach out, connect, follow, how would they do that?
Oh, at this point, I'm working on my web page. I'm working on a page for you. Okay. But right now, you can always reach me Facebook. You can reach me Facebook. You can message me for right now. But my brother Wendell is working on a page for me as we speak. So, and also, if you need any more information, you can read my book around by chapter 1, 2, and 3. In the first part of this, it's in my book.
Okay.
Everything we talk about, it is in my book. And the name of my book is called The Healer is Here.
Okay, The Healer is Here. Okay, well, that's definitely, well, I'm going to have to add that to my reading list for sure.
Okay. Saconi,
Yes.
I have to tell you something. The book
Okay.
has not actually been printed yet. I am the book.
Oh, you. Oh. Okay. All right. All right. You sound like your brother. Wanda said. He said, "I am the PowerPoint." So he said, "You
I'm the
are the
book.
book." Hey.
But you
Hey.
can look forward to come out really soon. So how about that?
Okay, all right. Well, we definitely do that. Do that too.
Mhm.
So, listen. Thank you again for your time and for your talent and for your treasure of being able to share with us some of the things that you've gone through and to encourage us to get the healing that we need. And
Yes.
so, I'm going to close the show out with, for those of you who don't know, yes, I do have a podcast that's talking about healing the inner child, but I also do personal development and leadership development. And so I'm going to close the show out with my sizzle reel. We'll see you next time. Bye. Well, my name is Sakoni Prince of SakoniPrince.com, where we make motivation personal by introducing you to yourself. I'm a motivational speaker, a trainer, and a coach. I'm also an author. I help people in the area of personal development and leadership development because I believe that you can't lead others until you learn how to lead yourself. But once you learn how to lead yourself, the next logical step is that you lead other people.
Sakoni Prince is the best keynote I've ever seen.
He really encouraged me so much.
He has this ability of seeing in people what they don't see in themselves.
He was so confident. When he was coming to the stage, you could see like, wow, this is a lion.
Any actor that's going for a role, they do a case study. If I'm going to be a fry cook, I go to a restaurant and watch people that are fry cooks. If I'm going to be a mob boss, I go and, well, maybe not go with a mob, but you take some notes as to what they do. Our children are watching us. What can they reference when they step into our shoes? I do what I do because I believe that people have truly yet to understand their purpose. Once you know who you are, nothing can stop you. But until you know who you are, anything can. So my goal is to really help people to understand their purpose and their calling. And oftentimes they have the answers themselves, but they're not asking the right questions. So I help people to get to that place to where they look at themselves. They step back and they see how they've been a help to those around them and what really drives them. And from that, they really understand the value of it. They learn to value their value and see what value their value brings. Because a lot of people, they have yet to do that. Until you know who you are, anything can stop you. But once you know who you are, nothing can stop you. I want you to understand that you are blessed. That you are blessed to be a blessing. That there is somebody looking up to you. They're looking at you. Don't ever forget that. Because if you ever do, you're going to leave them without a mom.
I've learned so much and I've experienced a lot of interactions with people.
The practical approach, like you can't just sit down there. You have to walk up to an opportunity. Sometimes you have to grab the opportunity. Sometimes you have to fight for the opportunity. There's so much life lessons.
I think from today onwards, I'll stretch out and reach to higher levels.